Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. There are people clicking on all the time as I speak. I've got as is the way of these things, I've got a slightly croaky voice, but I will make the best. We have people representing, can you believe it, 40 different countries from all latitudes. So we hope very much to give you good value. We've got a short video to play, followed by the Q&A. Richard's going to set us up with a few setup points now. Over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Angus. Hi, welcome everyone. So we're going to, as Angus said, there's a pre-recorded video segment to this that we're going to dive into in a second. During that video segment, we'd encourage you to ask as many questions as you can for the Q&A at the end. So at the top of your screen, you should see a Q&A button. So use that function, ask a question. We'll go through those as we're watching the video, and we'll get to them at the end. Contact details, if you want to reach out after listening to this webinar to either Angus or I, there's a QR code on your screen. If you scan there, you can put your details in and we'll get back to you. Failing that, there's my email address on the screen. Come directly to me and you'll get a response. So we'll put those up at the end as well. The webinar, the whole event will be recorded. So if you've joined to listen today, you'll get a recorded version of this at the end to share with anyone who in your organization who may not be able to dial in right now. So without anything more on that, we're going to dive into the video, and Angus and I will see you in the Q&A shortly after. Enjoy. We're going to be taking a walk today here on our UK farm to look at the challenges that growers are facing during times of market volatility, climate change, labour issues. We're going to look at the risks and opportunities and how we can look at some of these challenges with innovations in protected cropping. At the end of this pre-recorded segment, you're going to have an opportunity to ask some questions. To set the scene, Haygrove was founded in 1987 by Angus with 1 hectare of strawberries. But frustrated with crop losses, Angus started looking at protected cropping and became the pioneer of polytunnels here in the UK. That soon developed to supplying them to other people, and roll forward to today, we have 500 hectares of farming operations in the UK, Portugal, South Africa and China, and we supply and innovate growing system solutions in 50 different countries, covering 30 crops. Angus, that's quite a story of growth.
It's not really about growth or scale. I think the main drivers and desire over the years has been more about innovation, technically, and an approach to business for the future that one reasonably sees. And we've done our best at that, and any scale is a byproduct of that.
So you don't see scale as the key driver?
Absolutely not. No, it's the fascinating search for trying to do things better, as I say, technically, but also in approach to business. People always come first, but the drivers of the business, I think, beyond the people has been innovation primarily. We've been fairly open about it in our searches for doing things better, and we've shared it with others and offered the results of that innovation to them. Where they've liked it, they've bought it. You build up a reputation over time, and hopefully that's been good, and we work very hard to keep it like that.
And to build it over time, how would you measure success yourself? What are the things that you're looking for the business to be successful?
That's a good question. I always look at other people shining, the people within the business. That's a the culture within the business is massively important to me, but beyond, when you look at outside it, said modestly, not too ambitiously, impact. The world has got a lot of pressures right now, and they seem to have more coming, certainly environmentally, and within the industry that we enjoy, and so making an impact and a beneficial contribution to addressing some of those pressures is something that motivates. Within our industry, within those whom we know, it would be great if our approach to business inspires a few. I think we need to look at profit, because that's the oil, that's the driver, people, as already stated, and planet, the three Ps. So I hope as we look forward that Haygrove will add value technically in the things that we offer others for sale, including the fruit and the tunnels and growing systems, but also in contributing to other business leaders and managers' thoughts about how they approach their own business.
Okay, and coming back to Haygrove today, what are the biggest challenges you face now as a grower within our growing business that occupy your mind?
Short term or longer term?
Let's do short term.
Let's do short term. Selling the fruit. You know, sometimes I think that growing's become easier. Isn't that a terrible thing to say? Because you then get a smack in the face straight away. And so it hasn't, because the climate is the thing that is probably the one that smacks you. And gosh, that's happening all over the world, isn't it? And it's frightening. Short term, selling the product really well. Close behind it or alongside it, managing the climate. And then wrapped up equally closely, short term would be labour. Just the sheer access to management of and efficient use of and motivation of labour in a type of work that people seem to want to do less. Our focus really, and our driver and our fascination has been technical innovation for the sort of constant adaptation to market needs, to climatic needs, to labour cost needs of the various crops that we've covered, and one constantly learns, and you could say it's never ending, but because we are growers as well as developers of tunnels such as above us right now, we're suffering the same sort of pressures, and yet we're also putting a lot of our mind share into how we can mitigate some of those.
So Angus, we stood on this beautiful cherry field with a total vent over the top. Can you talk us how we came to putting total vent on this site?
No, I'm super interested in cherries. It's a huge crop around the world. Chile, Spain, Turkey, the States, China, you name it. Very high value crop, absolutely critical periods such as pollination, fruiting, where if the weather is imperfect, you lose 52 weeks of effort, and not to mention frost. So all that leads me to think that a tunnel that is maximally flexible, which is what total vent is, because it can roll right up, gives you the tools you need. We will take the plastic completely off during pollination when the weather's good. We will have it down if there's any frost risk. We will put some biomass heaters in here if there's some frost risk. If there's any rain risk during harvest, we will come down in the 6 minutes, whatever it is that it can roll down in. But even within that, I'm also very interested in to what percentage we can increase the percentage of the day that is at the correct VPD level for maximum photosynthesis of the plant. And so I think we can do that quite significantly, maybe 15-20% improvement.
So cherries are one of those very seasonal crops. What has that influenced in terms of your thought process on protection here, and how have you been able to influence the timing of that crop here in the UK?
Well, cherries around the world is one of the few products that are not 52-week, and so they have a price curve that reflects that, and the value of stretching the season is very high, therefore. And in the UK, we've taken what used to be sort of 6-week season with a 3-week peak into 12 weeks of picking, but one can advance the crop here by 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. In Chile, in certain locations, I think you've got the same potential. You're going to a totally different price bracket, and then of course at the other end, combination of genetics, altitude or latitude, and one can stretch it in most countries. I think Turkey's doing the same, Spain's doing the same. So the opportunity for reward through using tunnels rather than net or rain covers is quite significant at both ends.
So you'd say there's an increasing return on building resilience into what we're protecting here?
Think of the scale of crop losses that have occurred even in this 1 year, and think of how many of those could be saved and what the value of that saving would have been for those that that did, and then multiply that up over 25 years, 30 years, because these structures stay there for a long time, then I think the rewards will become learned, and the challenge to feel that it's worthy of the investment will be viewed differently in future than it is now.
So often when I'm traveling to see growers all over the world, the conversation's really quite short sometimes on the labour consideration. So as a grower, you're balancing the two. You've got those short-term challenges, but also you're thinking that these are going to be here for 25 years. What might those challenges be? How do you weigh up the balance between the short labour pressures and the longer investment decisions?
Well, labour cost, first thing that comes to mind when you say that is that labour cost in most countries, this one as well, has just been skyrocketing. That's separate to availability, isn't it? Which is another whole subject. So project it forward. Gosh, where are we going to be? And think of those populations in Asia as well, where the working age proportion of the population is falling off so fast. The desire for systems that require less labour are obvious, aren't they? Obvious, and if one's swinging as to what to invest in now at this point in time, of course the biggest thing to remember is that you're not buying for now, you're buying for a midpoint between now and the end of life of the structure. Is that 10 years hence, or is that too far to look? Is it 5 years hence? But it's not now. And what will the world look like in that 5 or 10 year time frame when your decision will still be here, being lived with? Well, I think it's reasonably predictable. Labour will be a lot more expensive, the climate is going to be more challenging, and the customers are going to be more discerning. The desire for quality product will have even more metrics around it, even more video and photographs and instancy and knowledge. So our successors will be pleased with decisions that we took that enable them to continue, rather than have to scrap it and start again.
So there's an investment then in your mind in the industry in resilience through insulating against the climate change impact on business, market volatility, which doesn't seem to be going away anytime soon, and this labour agenda in almost every country that seems to be headed only in one direction at the moment.
Yeah, I'd add one thing, and that is, of course, the years when there is not much around, and you've got it.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to happen, aren't they? There will be spikes upward of price.
Sure.
And if you've got the product then, what's it going to be worth? It's worth a certain speculation. It's the odds are rising that those prices will rise in certain times, and we're already seeing indications of that. I think we're doing the right thing.
Well, let's move on to another piece of the farm. We'll look at investing in how we can overcome some of those challenges with some of the innovations in Haygrove's protected cropping business.
So we've now walked to a favourite strawberry field. This is the Driscoll Zara, which I think is a fantastic strawberry. They're cold stored tray plants, heavy tray plants, planted in January. We start picking end of April through to when it's too cold, and if the quality falls away, it's sometime in October. So it's 5-6 months. The yield we hope to get would be 1.5 kilos a plant. We do get less than that as well, depends on the quality of plant and the growing season. And we plant six to the metre. Now it used to be more, gone down to 6, may even go down to 5. Super happy with the quality.
These are looking fantastic, right?
It's a great product. So, to the structures.
Yeah, so these are, as Angus has said, 6 to the metre in an 8-row system of hanging strawberry gutters. We're in a 9.6 metre bay width, easy vent tunnel. So the innovation here was to make venting simpler and cheaper to install in the first place, reduce the construction costs. So we're hanging these from the same HSO beams that give the strength to the roof. And what we're really looking to do here is a bit more on air volume, is increase the air volume, increase the ability to vent, harvest the rainwater, and give the best environment to these wonderful strawberries.
It's gone. Yeah, I think what's interesting here, that's what we were talking about as we walked down, is the choice that strawberry growers have to make when investing in a new strawberry infrastructure that is probably going to be with them for 25 plus years. And the needs of that structure are reasonably predictable. What are they going to be? Surviving the spikes, surviving the spikes of weather. That's got to be so we're growing everbearers here. You can get into thermodormancy if it gets too hot. So you need to be able to vent appropriately and quickly, and this is an easy vent, as you've just said, or one goes for a total vent if you're in warmer climates again. That's speed of reaction is high in my mind if I were the next block we put in. And then another interesting one is, do you hang the gutters or do you support them from underneath? And supporting them from underneath is very common, widely done, and you drive a tractor down the middle. Our philosophy, as you know, or my sort of approach has been not trying to be too smart. We've looked at the glasshouse industry on and on and on. What have they done? They're very, very good. Do they have tractors in the glasshouse? No, they don't. They make sure that every square metre is utilised. And that enables them to spend more on the structure above. And so hanging enables more density of row, 8 rows in here, as I think you said. And then the purchase of spray machinery, etc., that is common in the glasshouse industry, that spreads the boom out underneath and has risers coming up. They're widely available. So set over a long term, the greater number of rows in the system, I think, merits the chain versus the leg. The gutter provides you sealing, so length of season and collection of water. It all comes there is an extra cost, and so is one's approach longer term or shorter term?
And a lot of these learnings we've taken from growing ourselves in glass and taking glass technology to a field scale. And as Haygrove is a growing operation in Haygrove, what's the time horizon you're looking at when you're making an investment decision like this?
It's interesting. I think supplying systems around the world, we have learnt a lot from others, and even markets where the profitability is quite tight, I've observed that due to the culture there, or whatever the reasons are, there has in some places been a greater willingness to invest for the long term, which is your question. And I've admired the results of that. And so my answer to you is that as time has passed, we've been longer sighted about our investments. And some of that is just learning that you don't just buy a dog for Christmas. This thing that we bought 20 years ago is still there.
It's still here and still in the next field.
Well, yeah, and you sort of think, oh God, why did I do that? If only I'd bought a slightly better one. So I think there's been a learning there.
So there's a range of options. There's the low investment, quicker return route. There's the longer term time horizon on that. It's investing for the long term future. And here with Haygrove, we're seeing that time horizon get longer and longer over as time goes by.
That's our learning.
That's our learning.
It's been wise to spend a bit more up front to have an easier time later on, particularly for the management. I'd say another learning while we're on it is where we have put automation in, critical to train the management in the use of it, because you can put it in and bells and whistles and then not use it. That's a small extra percentage, but I think others have probably had that experience. And so training of management, having put it in, and then you're in a really good place. So that's been another learning. And then back to climate and what's coming and the volatility and the need to react to that volatility. I think that's not a learning, that's just an acceptance. And so all those things lead me as a grower to think I'd rather go spend up than spend down in most circumstances, but there will be some in which just keeping it cheap and cheerful
is appropriate.
Yeah.
And one of the things that hasn't travelled quite so well out the glass industry into tunnels so far is this idea of software around climate automation. What's your view on the place of that software within the polytunnel business or the greenhouse industry?
I really like one metric. Obviously you follow your temperature and humidity and everything, but soil moistures, that's all obvious. But the percentage of the day within the target VPD band. And altering the venting in order to widen that percentage and raise it, I think is a real exciting arena. That's what glasshouse people do, and I think we can raise it by significant percentages. And I think it's the next horizon. You know, we've come out of the soil into substrate. We've covered from the worst of the weather. We're feeding, you know, pretty good at nutrition now globally. I think the next step is well, it's plant quality, but also environmental management on field scale.
Okay, so here we are in one of our much bigger tunnels. We're 4 metres here to the gutter. They're still only 8 metres wide. Growing some beautiful Victoria blackberries from Driscoll's. Angus, tell us a bit more about what's happening in this particular tunnel.
4 metre legs, as you said, so an extra row in the leg row. So that's a 30% increase in the amount of plants that you would normally put in an 8 metre tunnel.
So really going for that intensive planting here.
Yeah, and we've had it now for 7 or 8 years of cropping. What have we learned? Something that I think is relevant to all crops in tunnels really, that where you've got a row close to the leg, and that is that the distance between the bottom of the gutter and the top of the crop is of course a space or not, depending on your choice of leg height, where air can move across tunnels, between tunnels, not just down them.
So even though we're planting them up, you're still getting that ventilation all the way across the block.
Well, and the moment that you have I'm going to say more than 50 centimetres between the top of the crop and the gutter, but the more the better, you get this airflow across tunnels and then you get a better environment. And so I think it's a good and simple one to remember, the gap between the top of the row and the bottom of the gutter in the leg.
So 6 years of innovation in here, looking at climate controllers applied to the tunnels, air venting, higher gutters, higher intensification, and then that's given us that time to really learn from that before we then apply that to what we're rolling out today.
And think of the conversation in the strawberry field beforehand. You know, this has cost a bit more than a simple tunnel that we have some older ones of that. Would I do this again for the extra row? 100%. Is that the economically right decision? 100%. You know, you got a third more yield from the same area.
And it's given us some beautiful blackberries. So Angus, we've come upon some vine grapes growing in tunnels, in substrate. Tell us what's going on here.
This is a bit of fun. It's only a few tunnels, and it's how to make yourself unpopular in the wine industry, because we're breaking all the rules. We've taken the vines out of the soil, we've put them in a pot for all the reasons that are well understood now, and we've put them under a tunnel, so it's quite expensive. However, we have learned with all these other crops that those changes can make a substantial difference, first to yield, and we are achieving it. So we have got between 4 and 10 times the national average outdoor yield of this country, and I would say we're reasonably confident of 6 to 8 times. That's a big change. And then after that comes quality, and that's the journey we went through with strawberries and other fruits when we went into sort of field scale substrate. You've got to learn about the substrate, learn about the feeding. Light reflection, we'll put white plastic down here as we did last year. We need to replace some of the poly above. The ratio of leaves to fruit, the structure of the plant, you can see we've split it into, each one is split into 2, so we've in effect got 6 rows in the tunnel, not 3. We're learning, so not claiming any prizes, it's all about the quality. Oh, we're also thinning the number of bunches on the plant at different levels to see what the impact is. Precision of harvest is something we've learned in other crops. And then we make the wine. Goal, is this disruptive? Could this lower the cost of English wine? There are, I hope there'll be no English listeners from the wine industry because you won't like to hear that. But yeah, I think we could grow grapes cheaper, and I think more reliably, and I think after a while of the same or better quality. We've done that in other crops.
So experimenting.
Experimenting. Curiosity.
Angus, strawberries in the soil in a top vented tunnel. Tell us a bit about this field.
Yeah, on beds in soil, maybe of interest to customers who are growing in the soil, and there are, that's the majority of world strawberries. These are in the soil because they're organic,
Right.
and we put them on beds to warm up slightly, use black plastic to advance the crop, and then we had this decision about what type of tunnel to put on top, and following up the earlier conversations we had about thinking long term, the value of the crop is high, organics, strawberries in general. That merits a good ventilation system of some kind or other, and an open top like this with a vent where the hot air can rise out, and with a side vent as well so that the air can come in and then rise out, the chimney effect, has resulted in an environment that the staff who work here sometimes say is the best we've got on the farm.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite interesting. And we chose to build it really to future-proof. So will we always have strawberries in the soil here? Probably not. Can we use this tunnel for everything we can remotely think of? I think yes.
So Angus, here we are in our latest tunnel, the most recent project, a total vent over strawberry propagation. Tell us what's happening in this tunnel.
Strawberry runner propagation, 1.2 metre rows, harvested in this country early July, so a little while to go. They're growing very, very fast at the moment. And we will then take those tips, grow them into tray plants to slightly different specifications. The quality of the plant is critical. So the investment one makes in trying to achieve the highest possible quality is a very important decision.
And what was it about that decision in this case that led you to think total vent was the right answer on this site?
Same principles as over fruit, but the value higher. So the relevant principles here were that, where they really bite, I think, is on a day where there's no wind. And I'm thinking right now might be a day, maybe they should be doing it right now. It should be rolled right to the top, so you have the full natural light in. With air movement, you get air exchange, and you don't in still air. Again, no wind today. You don't get CO2 depletion under the stomata, under the leaf. It can deplete from sort of 430 down to 100 if you read the research, and very quickly. So air movement is valuable. And then this sort of extension of the ideal VPD through, in here we've got misters as well as the ability to raise or lower it for different temperatures.
So natural light, air exchange, CO2 depletion, and the ability to roll all the way to the roof.
Yeah, and to have the optimum environment, whatever's going on outside.
So we've seen many things on our walk through Haygrove today, all the way from options in the soil to more complicated answers to more automation, and that brings us here to the total vent over the propagation site, and really combining this retractable system with a net probably takes you to all of the elements that we've tried to show during the course of today. But in terms of building resilience, Angus, what are you hoping the messages are that we've got across?
I think what we've really enjoyed when I look back over 30 or is it 35 years is as growers, recognising the pain points and the needs and trying our best to adapt a structure to help us do better. It's clearly that need to learn is going to carry on, and it's a reasonable projection in what direction. So we've got to get ahead of it. And if you're an investor, you've got to invest ahead of it and think very hard about to what level and what climate is one in. And it's super challenging to balance all those market forces with short-term, interest costs and uncertainties about crop. Sapiens qui prospicit. Wise is the man who looks ahead. Urban areas are clearly expanding rapidly. Middle classes are rising. Smaller growers, most sadly, are in many places reducing. You know, and this climate challenge is real. So the need for bold action, which looks forward and seizes the opportunity to do well for one's organisation by having product when others don't have it, and having it reliably as much as possible through many different weather conditions is the task of the investor. And we are trying to offer some options there, some of them unique, and I hope that we get a call from people who are curious and want to know more, and we will do our best to listen, understand, propose what might be right in their circumstances or who they might talk to, and help them succeed.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the webinar, and we're now going to transfer over to a live Q&A.
Excellent. Well, I hope that played okay. I know there's a handful of challenges whenever you try and stream a video in this way over a Teams call, but please put some questions into the Q&A. We've got a few to get us started, but now's the time. So there's a button at the top as a reminder. And as a second reminder, there's the QR code to stick your contact details in to get in touch with us after this, or my own email address if you want to send me something straight after this. So drop your questions in now, and we'll deal with the first ones that have come in during the video. Let's start, Angus. Let's pick a good one. We talked a lot in the video about different types of tunnels. Someone said, how do you decide whether to invest in high-tech or low-tech tunnels? And what type of tunnels are you putting up on Haygrove's farm? Good question.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's, I suppose, straight to the point. When I think of Haygrove's farm here, we have all types of tunnel present on the farm because we've still got the tunnels of 25 years ago up. So every day we're working with low-tech simple tunnels where we vent up to a fixed point and leave them there for most of the season, and that's generally okay. But when you get spikes of heat, we're getting a bit of heat this week indeed, or very heavy rain or hail or wind, then it might not be quite as ideal. And we've got other tunnels that are more sophisticated, and we've got others that are computerized. So the full interesting range, and certainly the more sophisticated ones cost more to build, but then growers who are more experienced thoroughly enjoy using them thereafter, and one has to think less. Those that are simpler are lower cost to build, but the environment within them might be more, less ideal. I think a few things have risen over the years that we've learned, and I'd include in there that leg rows are not as good as middle rows, might be 30% less good. That's in a simple tunnel. We're getting better quality product from higher air volume. That's consistent over years, even though one year is obviously different to another. And the management you have makes a big difference to your decision. Perhaps we can go on to that within another.
Yeah, well, I guess that leads us to the next question, doesn't it? There was one in here about investors. We've talked about this a bit as a business, but what's for a new, and I'll read the question, for a new investor, I think that means, what are the biggest barriers to success?
Yeah, what's the bottleneck? It's not, if you're a new investor, it's probably not liquidity. Is it market, or is it overstretching competent people? And I think even the most capitalized are doing this around the world. Particularly those in substrate. Substrate's not new, but it's still fairly new, and there are not so many people around who've done it for very long. That will obviously change. But as a new investor, if you've got new management, I think the attraction to be bullish on a lower tech system is probably quite great on scale. But it's interesting. I feel Richard, we've learned quite a lot. I've learned to respect the Chinese from our farming there. They've only really had our type of tunnel, and the blueberries are growing there in the south of China for something like 10 years, and I think they've covered 30 years of knowledge in that time. And they've moved from buying, I'm partly answering the previous question as well, they've moved from buying the cheap, lowest cost, but still large tunnel, into being willing to spend more. Michael, our manager there, was saying up to double now. And the more experienced the grower is becoming, the more they are wishing sophistication. Because the ROI on production technology and competence is extremely high. We all know if you've only got to put in a high yield in your spreadsheet, particularly with rising prices, and the difference that makes. So I go back to the competency of the availability of management to you as a critical deciding factor. If you're
I think we come across that, don't we, in some of the markets we go to that are newer to protected cropping, or particularly to substrate growing, that it's probably an area that's underappreciated, that you can bring all this technology, but the knowledge it still needs to be acquired.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than having a more sophisticated tunnel and then not using it.
Yeah, no, we see that. We do see
that. But equally, if you're a very experienced grower and you want to get the extra 10 or 20%, it's quite frustrating if you don't have the equipment to do it with.
Yeah.
So okay. I'm making the point of judgment of one's management and where are you aspiring to be in terms of management.
Okay, well, we've just had a good question come in, actually. I'm not sure what country it's from, but it's connected to this. It says, hi, what about vent automation based on climate parameters, devices, integration, software and apps? We'll talk briefly about it in the video, but perhaps with links nicely to the knowledge points, where's the place for that, and where do you see that going to help with that problem, perhaps?
It's been taking a while to come, strangely, even though it's been in the glasshouse industry for donkey's years. To take these apps and the sophistication into field scale seems to have been slightly slow, but I think it's there, and I think it's the next big thing. Certainly the soft-food industry is now pretty good at growing in substrate. We've sorted out the root and feeding. We've covered from the worst of the weather. Where is the next big gain, other than plant quality, which is always the case? Detailed environmental control, and so that's to these apps. The glasshouse growers don't fix their vents in one position and leave them all there. They see value in moving it, and so I think that's going to give us the next picture number, the next 20%.
And you can see that, coming into the tunnel world, and where is that going to be? Just in the high end? Do you think we'll see a bit more of that in the low end tunnel world? Where do you see the application coming?
Interesting question. Who might do it first? Who is doing it first? I think it's possibly not the biggest growers. I think it might be the place of the experienced and really good family growers, let's say on a middle scale, who aren't too big. I could be wrong there, because these things do scale reasonably well. But yeah, I would think it may come into the middle sector faster. Okay.
We've had a question, or two questions actually, about water efficiency. To read them both out to do them justice. How much water are we using in irrigation on our farms? What are your actions to address sufficient water availability for farm use? And there's another one similar, which says, where do you see the potential for water efficiency on farms? So maybe answering two at the same time. So water efficiency on farms, where do you see?
Water subject, right? It depends where you are in the world, doesn't it? We're in some dry places as well as good old wet Britain. So our usage varies depending on the crop, anything from 2,000 to 6,500 cubes a hectare. And the value you put on collecting the water, again, depends. It's obvious, isn't it? It depends where you are. But if one's in a dry place, of course you want to collect it, and it tends to be more lumpy nowadays. You get a lot, and then perhaps very little. And so investment in doing that, if one's got any water risks, is probably got a decent ROI over time. And the quality of the water is such a consideration. Again, most people online, I'm sure, know that well. From our point of view, here we have in the UK, we're collecting water on one farm at Ledbury, the original farm, and it's pretty much equal to the usage of all the crops underneath the tunnels that we collect from each year in a normal year. In South Africa, that is not the case. And if you're collecting water, you need automation. Again, that's pretty obvious, isn't it? But if you're going to put gutters in, you've got to make sure the plastic is in the gutter when it rains. And that's quite hard to organise without automation. So the payback for automation is larger for somebody who needs that water and that good quality water.
Maybe again, kind of loosely connected to that, as a question come in that says, where, if anywhere, do you see artificial intelligence fitting into farming in the future? I'm chuckling because I know we've talked a bit about this ourselves.
Oh, there's people who know a lot more about this than me. So, in all the robotic harvesting area, I defer to their greater knowledge. But in what I look forward to as a simple step, being a simple farmer, is AI that reads 10 weather forecasts, synthesizes it down to one, and I know there are apps that do that now, and then sets the computer for you in order to maximize, as we said in the video, the percentage of the day that is at the optimum VPD. So it's no good just putting settings into the computer as a human in the morning. Oh, sorry, you can do it as a human, that's good, but you're using your own intelligence. AI that reads the forecast and sets it forward for the day and the night, I think is a small step, and we might even be there now without me knowing it, but that would be very helpful.
Well, maybe if I can quickly move on to another question that's just come in. I'm not reading these out in order, incidentally, just as trying to link conversations. What are your thoughts on robotics and automation in tunnels? Not sure if that means specifically harvesting robotics or not, but just generally robotics in tunnels.
Well, we're as most people know, we're strawberry growers as well as berry growers, cherries, and we invested in Tortuga as one of the sort of friends and family round at the beginning, and they have raised a lot of money, and they've seemed to have been 2 years off continually. And Eric Adamson, I think, is a great guy doing a great job. But robotics always seem to be just around the corner. And I went to the Salinas Agri-Tech show with lots of robots there, and one stand after another said, yes, it's just around the corner. So that seems to be the current position. But I'm sure that corner will be turned, and then it will favour the large.
Okay. Let's deal with a different one. Here's a question I get a lot when I'm traveling around. What's the minimum size of tunnel you would recommend to start a new project? I'm not sure if that means area of tunnels or the actual tunnel itself. Perhaps let's interpret that as area of tunnels to start a new project.
Depends where you are.
That's exactly my answer.
We've in Europe, Germany, Poland would be examples. The average size of farm is a lot smaller than in some other countries, and they do very well to a very high standard. In certain other places, you wouldn't want to start with less than 50 hectares. So I think it's very location.
Yeah, and I guess whether you're packing your own fruit, whether you're marketing, whether you're exporting, whether it's a domestic, the size of the opportunity, your return on investment, the land cost. I mean, there's so many different variables that go into that, right?
Yeah, it depends on your crop as well. But in trying to be more vaguely helpful, I reckon in the world of berries, separate from blueberries, so I'm now talking softer berries, a 50 hectare unit to me seems a pretty fair size to manage. You start getting more than that in one place, it can be a bit of a beast. With blueberries, then it's a bigger number.
Well, let's jump on. I mean, this is a UK question, Angus, but I'll ask you in context of any country. How do you see the balance in the UK, in this case, between continued season extension through the use of protected cropping systems versus imported fruit? I think this answer may carry to more than one country, but perhaps give the UK perspective on it. I'm sure others will relate to that.
Well, if there are any marketeers listening, they've got to read that, haven't they? It's consumer demand. Is the consumer going in the future to prioritise local production more or less? Read that and answer the question. My own personal view would be the educated consumer, which tends to be those with money sometimes and buying our products, are probably going to be more concerned about environmental issues in the future than they even are now. And it is not unlikely that they will react accordingly and want local production unless it is thoroughly proven to be less environmentally appropriate. But in most cases, they'll probably read it that local is better. So if I was a marketeer, I would, and I think most have the same view, would want to maximise my local season.
Okay. One of the quick questions I can answer, have you built any vertical facilities under your tunnel structures? I think the answer to that's not yet, from our own business or customers, but I would imagine it's coming reasonably quickly. Will, there are other questions. I've been given the time warning that we are sadly out of time. I hope you found all of that insightful. The questions we haven't got to, our commitment is that we will come back to you individually for those. So we'll make sure everyone gets an answer unless the question's been answered. Asked anonymously. If it has, then please send it through to me so I know who you are. The contact details, again, are on the screen. So the QR code for us to contact you, my email address. Angus, perhaps over to you for any closing thoughts.
Those closing thought would be those that have the product reliably and at the right quality are going to do well, aren't they? Because a lot of people are not going to have it because these spikes are getting worse. And so the reward for success is going to grow. And the pain, the gouging of your pocket, which a lot of us have already experienced for being hit by these spikes, takes a little recovering from. So it's a time to, as we said, get ahead of the problem, I think, or the challenge, not say problem. The opportunity for those that are going to have the product will be possibly greater than it's been in the past.
Thanks, Angus. Well, look, thank you to everyone. I know these are brief. It's the first one we've done, and we'll enjoy some of your feedback as to how many we do more or what conversations may be helpful for you to listen to in a bit more detail. But we'll leave it there. It'll be available on a link that we'll send out to you shortly. And thank you all for joining in. Thank you.
Apologies for the croaky voice.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.